So gearing for PvP in the War Within is as broken as I can ever remember. It is madder than a box of frogs. In fact, it is madder than a box of frogs inside another box of frogs inside another box of mad frogs. That's really mad. In this video, I'll be discussing two massively broken tricks to gain PvP gear super fast. The second one I've never seen covered in any PvP video ever. It's a powerful but simple technique to dodge losing teams without using add-ons or other software. The actual way to gear up in PvP is very little to do with the established guides you have seen. It makes absolutely no sense and requires you to do literally no player versus player combat at all. Only Blizzard could come up with a PvP gearing system which requires you to do no PvP at all. It is very, very simple. So, at this stage of the season, if you are gearing up a new character, completely forget about random battlegrounds, arenas, solo shuffle, and rated battlegrounds. Gearing up late in the season was always horrible, but right now it is completely inaccessible due to the number of pre-mades and semi-organized players using add-ons and various other methods to bypass any kind of remotely fair contest. We can get around this with a very simple trick that none of the established guides cover. If you go to the PvP tab and look in pre-made group finder, you will see this mysterious War Crates raid option. Now, if you actually join this group, you'll find some guy with an add-on is tracking where all the War Crates are on every zone and realm. These things drop from the sky and are filled with powerful PvP currency. You simply fly around picking up the crates. Each gives you 60 conquest and 50 bloody tokens. These currencies can be exchanged at vendors here for literally the most powerful PvP gear in the game. You will also get a decent amount of honor from the crates, and also random players unfortunate enough to encounter your raid group. It will take you about 5 hours to get 2,500 conquest. The reason this number is critical is that when you hit 2,500 conquest, you can then automatically purchase the most powerful weapons in player versus player combat for your class. You're awarded 2 specific tokens automatically for this purpose. Now, you could just carry on doing the crates, but other options start to become faster at this point, which will save you a lot of time overall. At this stage, your gear will be good enough that you can start to make a contribution to battlegrounds if you choose to enter them, but you are still quite a way off best in slot gear. Before you start queuing for battlegrounds, pick up the PvP quests from Ruffius here. You want to avoid the arena quest if it is there. You also want to complete 1 random and 1 epic each day. The first completion gets you a bonus reward. Now, there's a hack here. Ever noticed this guy hanging around? No, I didn't either. A talented PvPer called Bad Menace had to point him out to me. He allows you to queue for the opposite faction. This doesn't work all the time. It depends whether the opposite faction has an imbalance of players. But as a mainly alliance player, the option is up 80% of the time for me. Now the trick here, and I've never seen this explained in any video before, in any kind of depth, is to use this NPC to bypass situations where one faction is getting creamed in battle after battle. So many times I hear players in Battlegrounds saying things like, "I've lost 10 in a row." It is because you are queuing with the same undergeared players. They could avoid this by simply queuing with the opposite faction. To make perfect use of this, which is known as the Mercenary contract system, do the following. First, queue with Horde initially, especially for randoms. They have a higher win rate. It is not actually 50% because of pre-mades and semi-organized groups, but it is generally better than Alliance. If you begin to experience multiple losses, change faction, but only do this if your faction is losing by a lot. if they are losing close contests and have a decent balance of healers and DPS. Stick with it. The reason is that when you first queue for a given faction, there is a high probability of being dumped into a battleground where one team is getting stomped and players are leaving. Requeuing after a battleground gives you less chance of this occurring, as you're in sync with other players who will all enter at the start of a battleground simultaneously. So, put simply, queue with Horde by default, switch faction when possible if you experience a bad loss. Note that you can still experience multiple losses in a row doing this. Sometimes I switch backwards and forwards in between factions and you just get really bad luck with the team composition. But switching faction does definitely increase your chances. Now, in order for this to be viable, you'll need to be able to earn conquest faster than you could from the war crates. War crates will earn you about 400 to 500 conquest per hour at peak periods. This can be reduced if there is an enemy faction raid competing with you, and of course sometimes there isn't a raid up at all. But generally speaking, your benchmark is around 400 to 500. To do that will generally require you to have one or more battleground or arena bonus quests active at the time from Ruffius. Now, very clearly, this whole thing is bonkers. Blizzard just don't know what they're doing. This is a total mess. No one sane would come up with a system like this. I'm just emphasizing this spontaneously because we've kind of accepted all this stuff as normal. It's just incredibly amateurish and poorly thought out. You might think that every PvP exploit I come up with on my Patreon gets fixed. And the truth is that off the top of my head, I can think of about 100 different exploits which just never get fixed. Many of them usable in rated content, and some ridiculously game-breaking. Some are class-specific, and many are situational. But even so, the impression Blizzard is giving me right now is that they just don't care. Now, to be fair to Blizzard, I've got a pretty good idea as to how to find exploits, but the problems, as we've seen in this video, go way, way further than that. The barriers to entry for a new player are just huge. It's going to be a miserable experience until you can figure out what's actually going on. You are basically going to have to cheese everything in some way in order to be competitive. But I'd like to know what you think. Do you still enjoy player versus player combat? Perhaps you enjoy the chaos. Let me know.